Let's move on to, and this will be the hard break in the YouTube videos. You're welcome, Coop. Let's move on to Egor Demin. Egor is from Moscow, Russia. He's listed 6'8", 190. He's a March 3rd, 2006 birthday, so he's 19, just recently turned 19. His rookie season will be his age 19 season, but he's a couple months older than KJ. Demin this season at BYU on a very good BYU team. Listen, this is not an untrue listing at point guard. He played the point for them. Now, whether or not he's going to be a point guard in the NBA, we're going to have that discussion. But he did. He brought the ball up for BYU, and he averaged 10.6 points, 3.9 rebounds, 5.5 assists, 1.2 steals, 0.4 blocks on 41.2, 27.3, 69.5 shooting splits. Some international stats that I think are worth noting. Playing for some U18 stuff last year. He averaged 15.8 points on 42.1, 18.6, 73.3 shooting splits, grabbed 7 boards, 4.5 assists, 2.1 steals, 0.8 blocks, 4.1 turnovers. Another pretty high turnover guy in general, though this year that wasn't as huge of an issue. Looking at some overall stats here, he dunked 12 times, had a 25.8 usage, 48% effective field goal is really bad. 50.9 true shooting, especially for a 6'8" or so guy. Really bad. 1.3 offensive rebound rate, not good. 14.8 defensive rebound rate, fine. Pretty good for a point guard, but nothing crazy. 34.6 assist rate to a 24.2 turnover rate, I think those are the numbers that really stand out here. 1.7 block rate, 2.5 steal rate, 26.8 free throw rate. That number specifically not very good. Shot 67.4 on only about 95 close to attempts. 35.1 on 57 long twos. Again, 69.5% from the free throw line, but on only 82 attempts. Took almost 10 three-point attempts per 100 possessions, despite shooting 27.3%. Took 154 total threes this year. They really, really let him shoot, despite the fact that he could not shoot. Another one, fellas, I don't really have, or actually, you know what? I do have a bar stat for this one. So I thought this was really interesting. I wanted to try and figure out what is the value of, kind of maybe an off-ball type player who's more of a passer than anything, who didn't make shots. So this is 6'4" or taller players with assist rate greater than 30, 3-point field goal percentage lower than 30, who was a freshman, sophomore at the NCAA level. So there's a lot of names here. I don't want to go through all of them, but some really worthwhile, notable ones. So Egor Demin obviously did it. Closest guy to do it was Jeremiah Williams, who was at Temple. AJ Hoggard did this. Scotty Barnes, obviously one of the more interesting names. Going down a little bit more, Edmund Sumner, a Coop and Upside Swings favorite, Dejan Diki Giroux, did this when he was a freshman at UMass. Nigel Williams-Goss did this as a freshman at UW before he ended up transferring to Gonzaga. Marcus Smart did this. Michael Carter-Williams did this. Deontay Garrett from Iowa State. Tyreek Evans did this. So just some really, really interesting names there in terms of off-ball, not really point guards, but guys who play with the ball in their hands. Some high assist rate guys, low shooting level guys. Worth noting that other than Marcus Smart, no one else took even close to as many three-point attempts per 100 as Egor Demin. Marcus Smart was at 9.2, Egor Demin 9.9. The next closest guy, I guess Giroux took 6.5, but then it's a whole lot of people way, way, way lower. So that really, really worthwhile look here. What do you guys think of that? Like, do any of those names really stand out to you? Do those numbers make sense? Like, where are you guys kind of at with that statistical look at Demin?
I think the hope for Demin, if you're going to, we'll talk about his value. I do want to talk a little bit about his value versus consensus when we get to the end, just because of how he's being discussed in general. But I think you have to look at Scotty Barnes there. I think Scotty is like the hope and prayer as far as, star level outcomes. But I mean, lest we forget the well-known effect of the FSU stats problem, where he played such a weird amount of minutes. There was so much weirdness with how he was used and how everyone played, and all the battalion stuff, the deep rotations. There's a very good reason Scotty is in there, and I don't know if Demin has the same excuse or ability to have it explained. You Bryce said that I was going to look like a Wojak when he brought up one of the names in there, and he was right. He was right. The Dejan Giraud poll actually had me tweaking. I do think it's really interesting how many of those guys are like stuck around in the NBA for any amount of time because they were stupid athletic and kind of good defensively. And I think that it's kind of a scary look for Demin there. Stone?
I don't have too much to add. I don't, to be honest, take away a ton from this query because Demin is just such a weird, crazy player. So I'm just ready to hop into talking about him, to be honest.
Yeah, I think that's really it. And I want to give the same caveat we gave for Jakucionis. The NCAA stats come with some weirdness. He hasn't played this many games. There's always a learning curve for international guys coming over, especially European guys. Australia might be a little different; their game is a little closer, but there's just a learning curve in terms of guys just have to do different things they've been asked to do. The system is just different, so I do think that's worthwhile. And for those who think that might be, a truism or something, there's plenty of evidence. Look back. There's plenty of evidence. It takes guys time to adjust to the NCAA level. And even star level guys. I mean, again, Franz Wagner was Demon's age, and Franz Wagner's freshman year, was nothing, crazy. There were some people who thought, oh man, maybe this is like a pre-draft guy, but as a freshman, only played in 66% of minutes, dunked less than Demon, was a better finisher at the rim, but just as poor a shooter on similar volume. Way lower level passer, had a 5.9 assist rate his freshman year in Michigan. And wasn't even the crazy defensive playmaker he became. 21.6 free throw rate, 2.4 steal rate, 1.8 block rate. So even a guy like that, star level guy at Demon's age, now he was younger than Demon, I think, but at least in terms of his experience level, wasn't quite there. But as we talk about Demon, there's another guy where I think it's important to really contextualize him first. I think the place to start is he a point guard? I think I know everyone's answer to this, but Stone, I'll throw this to you first. Do you think that Egor Demin is a point guard in the
NBA? Absolutely not. Not anywhere close. And I don't say that with any malice or anything. I think it's extremely important for whatever team takes him, or any player for that matter, to know the best role for them in order to succeed. And I think if you're placing Demin in a context as a primary initiator, you're setting him up to fail. I think is where I come with this. I think there, and to be completely honest, the reason why is he cannot dribble. He does not have the handle to be able to function as a primary initiator, and we can get more in depth into that, but he cannot handle any pressure whatsoever as a ball handler. He cannot get past the initial level of defense without using a screen ever. And it's a real issue if you're going to utilize him in that way. So from my perspective, Demin is completely a wing or a forward. And again, that's not to say that he can't succeed by not being a primary initiator, but I think any team that does that is going to have major disappointment on their hands, and is not utilizing him in a way that helps him succeed.
Yeah, this guy does not handle pressure into his handle at all. He's not a very complex ball handler. There's just I'm trying to take the approach here with Demin. If you can't say anything nice, don't say anything at all. But I'm trying to be honest here, and I just don't. To be a point guard, you have to hit really high levels in a lot of ways. That bar does not drop significantly at any size. Like the bar does not drop significantly past like 6'4", right? It's great if you're tall, if you can make basic reads, if you can see a little taller, see slightly different angles. The functional difference between 6'5" and 6'1", huge. The functional difference between 6'5" and 6'9", as a ball handler, not as huge, right? It's so much harder to handle as a taller guy. There's just, you start to lose more as you get taller. And Demin has all the problems of being a tall ball handler and is not, he doesn't make up for it at all because he doesn't have we talked about with a guy like, I'm not comparing them at all, but a guy like Wembanyama with his handle, he can really dribble because his reaction time is insane. His hand-eye coordination is insane. Demin's just not there. He's not as quick of a recognizer of the game. His hand-eye coordination is not nearly the same level. He throws really cool. Yeah, distinctly bad. But he throws cool passes. And I think when you see the highlight package of he can hit some step backs. Oh, he can run a pick and roll sometimes against low-level comp. And, he can, make cool passes out of a standstill. I think people are going to try to make this about he's a point guard, and it's just there's nothing there, in my opinion. And I'd love to see him succeed in other ways, but I don't think anyone who's drafting him to be a point guard is mistaken, in my opinion.
Yep, I completely agree. I honestly think the closest thing he would ever be to a point guard is, and this comes up with all tall ball handlers, is like the Draymond Green type of guy, and I don't think he's that either. I think the biggest reason he's not a point guard is less even handle, and it's more he just doesn't have the athleticism for it. He can't create advantages off the bounce. He needs really good screens, and even then, he's not creating clean advantages. I think maybe the closest comp I would have in terms of like ball handling ability is like a Joe Ingles. And Joe Ingles eventually got to the point when he was about 29, 30, 31 that he kind of did play like backup point guard, sort of in terms of offensive role, where he ran a lot of ball screen stuff. And, he's a really good player for the Jazz later in his career. But that took a lot of time to get there and a lot of NBA development that Demin can get. But that's a long ways down the line. I think that what I do like about Demin is I don't think he's a crazy predeterminer. I do think he reads. I just don't think he reads particularly quickly. He doesn't have very quick reaction time in terms of as events happen, being able to adjust. He has quick reaction times in terms of if what he predicts happens, he'll make that play, and he won't force it if what he predicts happens doesn't. At least not always. But I also do think a lot of his assist rate is just a product of, listen, BYU ran a really fucking good offense with a lot of stuff, like a lot of movement stuff. And listen, credit to Demin for making the right read, but a lot of it was just he had the ball in his hand. It's kind of like he kind of gets the same benefits like some bigs get from playing in Princeton. Like they'll throw him the ball like in the mid post and then run some absolutely nasty screening actions, and just someone is wide open at the rim, and Demin throws the pass. But is that Demin being such a great passer? No, I mean any NBA player except maybe Anthony Edwards could make that pass. No, that's a stray. But Rui Hachimura couldn't make that pass either. Dalton Connect couldn't make that pass. But I digress. He's a really he's a good decision maker, but he's not a crazy quick processor. So I think the role for him is actually more like kind of connector. And so Stone, I want to throw this back to you. How do you feel about kind of his overall? We'll talk about the playmaking a little bit later, but how do you feel about kind of the scoring package for him? What is he going to do offensively to make the defense sweat a little bit?
I don't know is the answer, and that's a scary answer. when you're talking about someone that is discussed within a top 10 or lottery type range. I don't know. I don't know what his bread and butter per se is going into the NBA. I think he does use his length well in certain regards. He does a lot of spinning in the paint to create space for himself because I don't think he can with his handle. So he uses his length well in that regard because he spins and he extends his arms really well as a finisher. Um, and I think it's also a really good way for him to maximize the fact that he can't absorb any contact whatsoever. Very I don't want to keep comparing people in negative aspects to Trey Johnson, but very Trey Johnson-esque of just cannot take any contact absorption whatsoever. And with a 6'9" frame, uh, it becomes an issue because if you are not necessarily a reliable shooter, um, and you're going to have to be in the paint against mismatches or something, and you can't really take advantage of that because you just aren't strong enough. Um, it becomes an issue. I do think he's really good at using his length. I'll give him credit there. And I think that that is probably his biggest strength. If you watched a lot of the what he did with Real Madrid U18 team, he really maximized his length as someone that they used him to hunt mismatches a lot of the time. He could get a lot of mid-range shots by just shooting over guys that were way shorter than him. He never really backed anybody down or anything. He usually was someone that was just contact adverse because of the fact I think he knows he's somebody that can't really absorb contact. Um, so he plays to his strengths in that regard. The problem is he just doesn't have a whole lot of them, and that's sort of an issue. He's got really long strides as a driver, and if we're talking about him in that context as someone that is more of a connector who can get to the rim against tilted defenses, length is really the biggest thing there. I don't think his touch is great. His contact absorption isn't great, but if you can beat guys with length, I think that that has some value in some sense against certain matchups. Um, and I don't think he's someone that makes a lot of poor decisions as a connector. I don't think he's making a lot of bad reads or anything. The biggest thing is it's just the accuracy at which he does it, and we'll get to the passing in a little bit. But in terms of the scoring, like I think that's really where the only area he excels for me is really as just using his length against mismatches, and that to me is not a big enough sell if you're talking about someone that needs to return top 10 or top lotto value. But if you guys have further thoughts on as to why he might be able to do that, you can be my guest. I guess you don't.
I don't have any additional thoughts on Devin. I'm sorry. Yeah, Bryce, you have anything here?
Yeah, listen, I think that a lot of the Demon stuff would make sense if he could actually make shots, but I just don't think he can. There's no the only track record really statistically is 2 years ago in a stretch of 9 games. He shot 41.9% from 3, but in that same stretch, he shot 63.6% from the free throw line, albeit on very low volume. Now, the next year, he shot 18.6% on 5.4 3-point attempts, but shot 73.3% from the line. So if you could mix those two up, maybe there'd be something there. But I think the touch is really bad. I think the lack of reaction time overall translates to his body doesn't react well to like the motion it's going through. I'm not putting that into words correctly, but he doesn't have nothing in his game is natural. It's all very robotic, and that translates to the jumper, and that means there's not a ton of touch there. He's very arrhythmic in terms of how he gets into it. Like there doesn't seem to be great like comfortability and cadence there. I think he's always been and will continue to be the type of guy who gets a lot of shots up because the expectation is for him to be a shooter and he has to get those shots up, but doesn't really make them at a very high level. Now, there's an outsized world where I think he's probably about 6'7", probably a real like when it's time, list him. I think he's probably a real enough 6'8". I don't think he has very long arms, but he's a real 3, maybe even 4 at the NBA in terms of his size. He has bad lower body strength, but he has a strong enough chest, right? He has a big enough frame to handle some certain things and play positionally. And listen, if he's drafted high, he might get enough shots to where he does develop into a competent enough 3-point shooter. And if he does, his game makes sense. I think he's a pretty good connective passer. Now, again, he's not a quick processor, but what he is legitimately really good at is if you throw him the ball on the wing, he is just good enough as a ball handler and driver that if you are so focused on trying to make sure he doesn't pass, he can dribble in a straight line past you. And he's an okay, statistically an okay finisher when he gets there. I don't think he has much craft. He's really hurt by, there's a weird body imbalance where he's a right leg leaper, but he's a right-handed player, like very right-handed player. And so he's always trying to drive left so that he can get a jump off his right foot. He can time up a jump off your right foot. It's not, you're like, I'm a left foot leaper. And for me, I want to drive right. Now, partially it's because I'm right-handed, but also because I want to time up my steps and my footwork with my left leg being the one to explode off the ground. And he's the opposite. He's the inverse. But he had, and I think Gabriel Procito was like this too, where like he was a right leg leaper, but a right-handed player. So it's kind of just creates this weird imbalance where he's not a very good left-hand finisher, but he wants to go left. And so it's sort of weird, this weird thing. But anyways, he can stand on the wing and like if you're running off-ball action, like he's going to make the right decision fairly consistently. If you give him some handoffs and some pick and rolls, like he'll have some occasionally that look pretty good. Right, like the one everyone that's going to be in every highlight video is that one against UCF in the tournament where he comes off the middle ball screen and he does this up fake, brings the ball back down, finishes. Right, you got the big in the air with this hard up fake kind of weird Euro step thing. There's some moments like that are pretty cool, and he'll be able to do that every once in a while. But I just don't know what the path to him actually being efficient at anything that matters offensively is, other than he's just a big enough 6'8" guy who can kind of do some things. And I don't think the shot is broken. Like I don't watch it and say there's anything that really needs to be fixed other than he does kind of do this hard flick at the end instead of driving up. He needs to drive up more. He doesn't jump very high. He gets no rise. He's forced to take. I mean, he takes a lot of shitty shots. He really loves that hard stride stop turnaround fade that is just fucking awful. Is one of the worst shots in basketball. And so, I don't think there's really a path to consistent offense, but as a fifth guy, he's probably fine if he can just make enough shots because he's going to move the ball fine and he's not going to probably make the wrong. He had a high turnover rate, but some of that was just that he was asked to make a lot of passes. Like they gave him the ball all the time and said, "You're the guy." I mean, Richie Saunders and Trevin Nell and Keba Keita and Kanan Catchings were all off. They wanted them to all be off-ball players who got the screens and did all that and set the screens and did all that shit. And they wanted Demin to be the guy to make the reads off of it. And so, he made some wrong decisions, but I think over time, like they were pretty correct. His worst turnovers were he has no bag in the lane, so he'd get in the lane and he'd stop and he'd be like, well, there's nothing I can do. And the defense just locks into everyone and you just throw the ball to the other team. So, I mean, his lack of bag is a real issue, but I don't see a ton there offensively. That's a long-winded way of me saying I don't see a ton there offensively as much as I want to. As much as I think there is a path to a role, it's a swing on a shot that isn't very real right now. So let's transition. Stone. I don't know if you have anything else offensively. If you do, say it. But if not, he's going to make up for all these issues on the defensive end, right?
I do have a couple more things real quick offensively, but no, he is not. The offensively, he is just way too premeditated as a passer. I feel like that's a big issue. Another big issue as to why he can't be a primary. And if you look at the passing, the turnovers, the accuracy is like really bad. He is just I talked about cleaning up the accuracy with Jakucionis, and it's because it's not consistent. He has some passes that are, a little too low or a little too high. With Demin, it's consistently way too soft of a pass. It feels like he throws a lot of passes that just don't have a lot of velocity on it. Doesn't get to his teammate in time, or he'll throw it just way too high. He'll throw it like 3 feet over their head. Um, I noticed he is a really good lead passer. Actually, he's like coming out of like secondary or short roll situations. Like if he's throwing a lead pass, he's really accurate with that. But like lob passes, even like coming out of pick and rolls with a lob pass, he throws them so softly that um it, it the lob catcher has to like go under the rim to catch the ball and bring it back up above his head to dunk it. Like he throws extremely soft passes, which is something we don't see a whole lot of with prospects. Um, and with the assist turnover ratio, I don't think I think a lot of it is him with just bad passes, but also if you look at like the Real Madrid with the U18 team, people like to harp on the assist turnover ratio with Jakucionis, which is fine. It's not great. It's 1.3. We gave reasons as to why we still believe in him as a passer. Um, and I believe it was 1.9 this year at BYU for Demin. Uh, with the Madrid team, it was 1.09 assist to turnover ratio, which is worse than any other number I just threw out there. So he does not have. What does he look like in a context that is not highly schemed with a bunch of really good shooters surrounding him? Um, we know what it looks like, what it looked like in Real Madrid as a U18 team. What does it look like in the NBA where he's not in this idealized context? Maybe it's somewhere in between. He's improved since that Real Madrid U18 team, but I don't think he should be in a position where he's making that many decisions as a lead passer either. I'm not super interested in him as anything other than a connective passer. In terms of the defense, he's extremely long. I think he can guard guards fairly well that are not super quick. He does a good job of utilizing his length, getting into their space. He's not much of a playmaker necessarily. He's not going to be any sort of um, steal threat or rim protection threat in any way, but he does a good job of containment against guys that are a lot smaller than him and not super quick. I think his hips flip pretty quickly, actually. So against guys that are burstier, not super not super bursty guys, but guys that are faster than him, he can make up for it with his length and quick hips. Against any sort of big or really forward, even some guards, to be honest, uh, he's going to get bullied towards the rim a lot. He just does not have a frame that is conducive to being able to defend guys of similar height or bigger, and it's an issue. It's not just the core, it's not just the upper body, it's not just the lower body. It's all three of those things. And I think that's a really big issue when it comes to.
It's an extra big worry because he's already kind of filled out too. It's not like he's super skinny and weak. Like he's looks kind of,
Exactly.
he fills his jersey up and he's weak, right? So that's an extra big concern.
Yeah, and it might be just where he came from. A lot of the tape I watched previously, it's not a super physical context that he was in. Maybe that's something he has to learn along the way, but it's going to take some time. I think that he can be a recovery guy just because of how long he is, but he's not any sort of low man because of the contact issue and because of the fact that I don't think he reads the court super well as an off ball guy. Um, I think he's fine on ball against smaller guys, but when he's off ball, that's where I think a lot of the decision making issues come out. I think he struggles to simultaneously read the ball and read his man. He has to make up a lot of ground a lot of times because he loses track of one of them. and he gets caught in no man's land because of that. So I think that's an issue with him, and I think if there's not a lot of context where he's going to be guarding guards that aren't way quicker than him. So the one area that he is a positive in, I don't think is going to be abundant at the next level.
Man, he just what does he add to a team defensively? He's long, he's tall, he's long, he's got a little bit of strength. His hand-eye coordination is not good. He's not getting his hands on balls. He's not blocking shots, which I think you would look at him and be like, okay, maybe there's some like cool movement stuff where he can help out around the rim. No, that's not happening. His timing, he's not athletic enough. His timing's not good enough. Hand-eye coordination is not good enough. There's just, and you can't stick a guy like that on NBA level guards. They're going to have so much leverage on, even if they're not faster than him, they're going to be stronger than him. Yeah, he can't navigate screens because he's huge, and he's just like, it's such a weird experience watching him, because he does just like, you know, the way that he gets talked about, and you'd think that he's all over. You know, he's active. He's got active hands, super lanky. You know, he's talked about as this lanky, interesting, tall point guard. There's no, I just don't see any upside for him on the defensive end. He's not even like, you know, maybe he could be a Kyle Anderson where he's like smart and in the right position, and that's all that kind of matters. I just don't think he has that level of feel, and he doesn't have any of the, you know, funny to say athleticism, but he doesn't have the special, you know, micro skills that a guy like Kyle Anderson has. And you know, maybe he's just 6'9" and tall, and that'll allow him to be a solid defender. But it's just, I don't know. I don't see it. Bryce, do you have anything else here, or do you want to shoot to close in here?
No, I mean, I think the only thing I'd add defensively is that, yeah, I mean, he meets sort of baseline athletic requirements, but doesn't do anything to really impact things. I think he'd probably be okay on threes, probably be okay making decisions away from the ball, but is never going to be anything more than a survivable defender. I wish I liked it more. You know, he even like the steals and blocks he got weren't like preternatural reads or anything. They're just he was in the right place. He might be an okay contained defender on ones and twos here and there, but he's going to really struggle with really athletic players in any level. And he can't like lock and trail either. He's not that type of, you know, he just doesn't really, there's not really anything there for me to latch on to defensively. That does kind of take me to where I have him. There's some talent here. And had he stayed in Europe, I imagine we'd be talking about a guy who maybe in 2 years is going to be a really interesting draftable player. But he's just not there. He probably should have gone back to school, to be honest. I don't want to be that frank, but I think he would probably be better off. Now, him personally will be better off leaving this year because next year is a better class, I think. And, you know, he's going to get drafted top 10. I pray to God not by my Utah Jazz. But he's probably getting drafted top 10. But in terms of his development and being better as a basketball player, he probably should have went back to school and played with the Bandston next year. So I don't really have anything to latch onto here. He's at least 2 tiers below Colin Murray Boyles for me. Obviously, right now he's technically at 9 out of 9, but there's no way he'll end up a first rounder even in this class for me. Most classes, this is the type of guy I'd take. Maybe I'd start looking around 40 with the thought that, hey, we're going to get him on a two-way and we're going to see. If he comes in and he does some things on a two-way, okay. But otherwise, I'm not, you know, you're not really attached to it. So that's what I would do. He'd be a two-way guy for me, not really a guaranteed contract type of guy. So that's where I'm at with things. He's going to go way higher than this. And again, there's a path here, even for a guy I have in my two-way area. There is a path for him to be a good NBA player. It's that his shot really develops, and he's a comfortable shooter who moves the ball and is big enough and smart enough to just exist on the floor. There are guys like that in the NBA, but they're fairly rare. And I don't think, the odds he's going to be like a Bojan Bogdanovic level shooter seem fairly low. And if he's below that, then, you're kind of talking about, could he be Vit Krejci? Maybe. I don't think he's that level defender, but he's a little bigger. I don't know. That's where I'm at with things. Coopstone, where you guys have Jaeger?
I have him at the bottom of my board currently. Going to try not to be too mean. He has one NBA skill right now, and that is the most micro of micro skills, and that's cool inbounds passing. I don't think there's anything else that gets him on the floor on an NBA team this very moment. I think he's the pinnacle of the kind of really flawed draft philosophy that is, raw, meaning higher potential, just because there's he doesn't have any skill now, but what if he gets skills down the line? That's what a high potential player is. I think that's just a very flawed way to look at things. And real potential players are guys who are already good and who are going to continue to get better. And that is just not Demin at the moment. You can point to the flashes. You can point to all this stuff. It just kind of reeks of Ousmane Dieng without a jumper. And that's just not a guy. Ousmane Dieng also without a handle and a jumper. So that's
just Ousmane Dieng, to be honest.
Dieng is a mild to moderately interesting G League player because he can kind of pretend to dribble the ball. I don't think Demin can do that. Last thing I'll say, he was the 5th best guy on a good Big 12 team. And at the end of the day, I think that's just kind of you have to be better if you're going to be a lottery pick. If you're going to be a high-level NBA player, you just can't be the 5th best guy on a good team. You got to be better, and he's just not.
Wow, some harsh words there from Coop. I think Demin is. I'm going to be the highest on Demin, which is crazy. I did not. I guess I kind of did, but
yeah, you said that you're the Egor Meister, so
Jägermeister.
Sorry, I told you I mispronounced his name.
It's a drink, but
yeah, I was gonna. I mean, Coop, you're an adult, but
I hate Jägermeister. Okay, don't.
I was just gonna say there's not parties like that down in Houston. I guess come up to WSU, but
we do have parties like that. We do.
But anyway, so and looking shout out to Cerebro Sports and the Center Hub, but he has a 7.5 C RAM score on Cerebro, which indicates he did have a fairly productive collegiate season for a pretty good college team. But overall, the translation to the NBA is just not there for me. I have him 8th out of 9th, just above Trey Johnson, because he's someone I would rather take a flyer on. But still, for me, is a flyer that is more of a 2nd-round guy. He is a firmly draftable player to me. Someone I would probably take top 60 in every class, but not somebody I'd sniff around lottery. Maybe in this class numerically, he actually might end up near the back end of the top 30 for me as we continue to watch more guys. But in most classes, he's someone I'd probably look at as like Bryce said, in that 40 and beyond type range.
Yeah, I guess that's it. I guess that's all we got. So JHS and Max Lewis is crazy. But anyways, yeah, that's all we got. We hope you guys enjoyed. We're still kind of experimenting a little bit with the YouTube thing. I think Coop is going to have some tricks in that bag he's pulling out for this one. So I hope you guys enjoyed it. why I don't know why that's the movement for tricks in the bag, but you could have like Euro, give me a little half spin, shoulder shrug, whatever. But anyways, this has been fun talking about these guys again. Not every day you get to talk about a guy who's second on your board. Our next podcast, I don't think will disrupt him, as we're talking about Common Malawak and Asa Newell. Then we have Concanopal, Liam McNeely, Rashir Fleming. And we'll have some other fun ones on the board. The truth is, we only want to get so far because with the portal right now, it's like like one of our ones coming up. We were going to talk about Yaxel Langdenborg. I doubt he goes to the draft now. I mean, he's got to get it for sure. Yeah, we'll draft you top 30 probably to not go to Michigan. It's a little too bad. I think we're going to stop seeing like mid-major guys consistently going to the league. It's going to be more of a rare thing. If we were in this, if college basketball was the way it was 3 years ago, would Jalen Williams have had to transfer to like UCLA first before he could get drafted? I don't know, but it's just how things are right now. We're taking it as we go, but pretty confident that Newell and Malawak will be in the draft, and that next group pretty confident in those three, and then we're going to go from there. The one after that, I'm confident in those three too, because two of them have already cleared. So I'm, it's starting to round out. But we hope you guys are enjoying it. For Coop at Alley_Roop_Coop, for Stone at Report _Court. I'm at Bryce114. Give us a like, rate, and review. You can also like and subscribe if you're on YouTube. Hit the bell for notifications, all that stuff. We're really trying some stuff here and trying to see how it goes. We hope you guys are enjoying things, and let us know what you think of these two guys, what you thought of our analysis, what you think we need to do better, all that fun stuff. This has been the Upside Swings NBA Draft Podcast. We hope we hit our ceiling. Thank you.